Okay, it's almost Christmas, and I got to get a bunch of these custom countertops done for my little house build that I'm doing. And I've got a countertop that goes in the closet. I've got one that goes on the two that go on bathroom sinks, and let's see, and one that goes in the laundry. But I thought I'd show you how easy it is to build one of these custom epoxy countertops, and it's super cheap to do. So what I use MDF, and basically I'll glue on some sides, and you can see the piece right here. It's got sides glued on it to make the edges thicker. So I start out with some 3/4 MDF, and then I glue an 1.5 inch strip all the way around it to make it basically an 1.5 inch thick edge. And then I sand them all really flush on the outside, and I make sure that there's no imperfections in the top at all. Try to just, you know, clean it up really good and just get it ready to be able to have epoxy on top of it. Now, what I do, I go through and sand, just rough up the whole thing and basically smooth it all out really good. And then the next thing I do, I'll prime it with some, I'll wipe it all down, usually some isopropyl alcohol or something, and then I'll prime it with a good bottom coat. Now you can see I'm doing multiple tops right now at a time. You know, I've got 3 or 4 different tops going on. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to make an epoxy countertop. It is really super easy. And I'm using a really good primer to primer this MDF. And you can, sometimes I'll use a darker coat. It depends on the color that I'm going for. If I want some lighter color to come through, a lot of times I'll put the lighter color on the bottom. That way, you know, if I get some exposed areas, it'll show that light color through. Or the opposite, I'll use some dark color, and then that'll help with a darker countertop. Now these countertops are gonna the one that I'm showing you today is gonna be 4 different colors: steel gray, a little bit of white, a little bit of black, and then a little tiny bit of brown. I'm not sure if I'm going to put the brown in it yet, but I'm going to start off with gray, black, and white, and try to make, you know, a good looking countertop for inside this closet. Okay, once you get your countertop all primed and ready to go, you want to raise it up off the ground and level it really good, because you want your epoxy to flow evenly all around your project. So when you pour it, you want it to basically self-level across the whole top. So what I'm doing here is I'm leveling it up, and basically I'm just using some shims and getting it pretty level all sides, so that when I pour, everything will go really well. Next up, I tape all the sides, actually. Now in this particular countertop, this is a closet countertop, and it has a waterfall edge on only the front side. And it has 3 walls that go around the side. Now I'm using super clear. I've got the room temperature at about 70 degrees. And then I had this epoxy stored in a room that was about 80 degrees. 75 or 80. So it's pouring out pretty nice. And that's basically what you want with epoxy. Now this is super clear. I've had pretty good luck with the super clear. And this is a tabletop epoxy 1:1 ratio. Now this particular countertop, I'm using 3 ounces per square foot. That's what I'm going for. So I start out using 32 ounces of epoxy. Then it was just a matter of mixing it up real good. Now you could mix this up by hand, but I prefer to, I run my drill really slow, and I start out mixing it for about 2 minutes with the drill. Now I'm going pretty slow with the drill, and I'm trying not to mix up too much air into the mixture. And then I'm using the stick you saw, the stir stick, to wipe down the sides and the bottom. And basically I just, you know, mix it up really good. Usually 2 or 3 minutes is good before I start mixing colors. And then right here, once I'm done mixing it for a few minutes, I will put it in smaller cups, and I basically put it in these small cups according to what colors I'm using, and then I'll dump the rest onto I'll flip the bucket upside down and let the epoxy from the mixing bucket, I'll let it empty out on top to give it something to flow. And then I'll basically start putting all these different colors on. And now in this case, I'm just going to use three. I'm going to use a white, a gray, and then a black. And basically I'm just going to spread it all out, make sure it gets evenly across this whole thing. And that's what's nice. If you can level it out really good, that helps out a lot. The next one I'm going to pour on here, and these pigments that I'm using a white acrylic paint, and then I'm using eye candy gray. Actually, it's a steel gray, Japanese steel gray from eye candy. And then I'm also using a black. And I'm basically just going to mix all these colors. Now, you could do this a different way. There's all kinds of ways you could do it, but you could basically do a dirty pour, which is kind of cool too. But in this case, I'm trying to just blend all these colors together, and I'm going to use my hand and basically just mix this whole thing together and get it really smooth across the whole counter. And you'll see, I'll start just, using my hand to flow all this stuff through here. And the main thing is that you want to get a nice even coat across the whole countertop. And this is, basically what I'm doing is I'm showing you how easy it is to do one of these countertops. Now this particular counter, I figured out that the amount of epoxy and the wood cost me less than $30 to do this countertop with the wood and the epoxy. Maybe 35, but very, if you count the pigments and stuff, let's say even $40. But it's a nice little countertop, and it doesn't take, it didn't take much to do. I spent basically 2 days doing it. Not even like very much time though. I probably spent a total of 2.5 hours on this countertop by itself. But I actually ended up pre-making over 5 of these countertops. Now right here I'm using a blow dryer, and what this does is it kind of blows down into the epoxy, and it tends to mix it really well, giving it kind of it almost helps to give it a natural look. And doesn't always work, there's all different kinds of things that happen when you're doing epoxy. And sometimes there's crazy things that happen that you're like, wow, that looks really good. And then other times you'll do something and you'll be like, wow, that looks like shit. And you end up sanding the whole thing and redoing it. But the nice thing is you can, like, let's say I didn't like how this turned out. You can actually go through and wait a couple days, let it get completely hard, sand it, and then you could either prime it. You could either prime it a different color and start all over, or you could just go over the top of it with some new colors. And right here I'm putting in a little more white, and I'm basically blowing it in there with the blow dryer. And I don't really have it on the blow dryer on heat. I just have it on cool air. I'm just trying to get that white to give it some texture in there. Basically, I check the whole thing over, and then I pull out. Now this is the front edge, and I want this edge to flow down through there. And you'll see I'm going to add a bunch of epoxy to the front of it, and then I'm going to actually use the roller and keep this material. I want it to flow over the side really good, and I want the colors to kind of come over the side. So I'm basically using a little trowel, a little plastic trowel, to bring the colors over to the edge, and then I'm going to basically go back through with the blow dryer and make sure it comes over this edge really good. The roller helps to get some to get some epoxy evenly on the on those front faces, and it helps for it to flow over it really good. Right here I'm going to go back over it with the blow dryer because after pulling the tape on the front, I've kind of messed it up a little bit, so I'm gonna go through with the blow dryer and kind of clean this up. It's funny, like when you're first doing it, you're like, wow, I don't know if these colors, I'm not sure, you know. But you know, sometimes they turn out really, really good, and then other times they turn out bad. But for the most part, if you get used to how the textures are and the different dyes and stuff, you can be pretty consistent with them. Now this happens to be, you know, there's black in this house, in this particular little house that I'm building. There's black frame doors, and then there's gray. There's some gray tile and stuff like that. So right here you can see I'm just kind of touching up this face a little bit to make sure it's flowing down this face. The faces, I tend to think the faces can be the trickiest because you want that natural look of the grain of the epoxy to come down through there. Now right here you can see I'm using the blow dryer a little bit just to clean it up a little bit. I used to use a torch to get out my air bubbles, but now I use a very light mist of denatured alcohol and it works really well. Okay, so this is the next day, and you could sand this, just do a light sanding on this and put a clear coat on this. But I have an idea to actually, I'm gonna wait one more day, let it harden up a little more, and then I'm gonna do a clear coat on it, but I'm also gonna add a little bit of color into that clear coat, which I didn't put on this lower level. So it's gonna have a little bit more depth to it, and I'm gonna introduce very little. I'm gonna introduce probably a little bit of some tan lines and maybe a little bit of white lines into that clear coat. But you can see, actually, I mean, it's not bad. And this actually is going in a closet. This is a countertop for a closet. But yeah, they're really easy to do. Anybody can do these. We'll wait one more day. We'll sand it with some 220 and we'll do one more coat on it, and then we'll install it. Yeah. Okay, after waiting another day, I take some 220 sandpaper with my orbital sander, and all I'm doing is scuffing it up. I'm basically just taking the shine off of it, and that's all you need to do to put on your. Now, I was going to put a little color in this, but I just my wife said she liked it just the way it was. So today, all I'm going to do is scuff it up, and then I'm basically going to do a flood coat on top of it. You got it all sanded, just mix up your epoxy, make sure you're all level, and I'm basically going to do about 32 ounces again, and basically just flood this whole countertop, make sure it flows over the face real nice, and then just let it cure. And I usually, you know, before I do any sanding or anything on epoxy, I usually try to wait a couple days. If you try to sand anything too soon, it can get gummy if it's not completely cured. And right there, I mix it for about 2 minutes, then I hand stir it, and basically I'm just gonna flood this whole thing with this epoxy. And basically it's just a flood coat, and the idea is just that it covers really good. And you can see here I'm just spreading it, make sure it's getting to everywhere on this countertop, and then also that it floods over the front edge real good. That's how I mean, these epoxy countertops are really easy, and if you take your time and you do your preparation all good, they really will come out really nice. And that's basically it for the flood coat, and basically it's just a matter of I mist it, get rid of the air bubbles, and then walk away. Little touch up there. Yeah, walk away. And here it is the next day, fully rock solid, complete. And basically, I'm gonna pull this outside tape off. So that's the front edge you can see right there. You can see the lines coming through from the different colors, kind of gives it kind of gives it a natural look, I think. Let me know in the comments if you like this one. I got about 4 more to make, and here it is installed in the closet. And yeah, I thought it came out actually pretty good. Let me know in the comments what you think, and thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later.
He goes, it's a working man. He's trying to make a living any way he can.